This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat at 100, an effective tool of Jan Andolan. The participants are Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and Om Vesh Upadhyay, AIR correspondent.
Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat program was started on 3rd of October 2014, and since then it has been broadcast on last Sunday of every month on All India Radio and DD Network. The 30-minute program is completing its centenary episode on 30th April 2023. We have witnessed how through Mann Ki Baat, Prime Minister Modi reaches a vast spectrum of a socio-economically and culturally diverse populace through which he inspires and energizes them. And today to discuss on this in detail, we are joined by political analyst Mr. Shekhar Iyer. Welcome to the program, Mr. Iyer.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Iyer, to begin the discussion, I would like to share a survey that recently Prasar Bharati and IIM Rohtak conducted, in which they talked nearly 96% of population is aware of Mann Ki Baat program, and it has reached around 100 crore people with 23 crore regular or active listeners. So, Mr. Iyer, I want to understand from you how big and significant this program has been when you see its reach and impact.
Well, when it was launched by the Prime Minister on a Vijayadashami day, that is on October 3rd, 2014, within few months after he took over as Prime Minister. So it was not taken that this is going to become such a big exercise in a public conversation. And from what has happened in the last over several episodes, and after almost 9 years, what we are seeing is this has become one of the biggest conversational exercise in democracy in the world, one must say. Because the survey done by Prasar Bharati and the Indian Institute of Management of Rohtak has come out with some very interesting details. And also the fact that the persona of Prime Minister, as perceived by the people, by the general people, as well as by the listeners, the people who have been listening to him on over several issues, over several episodes, they have come to a conclusion that here is a person, here is our Prime Minister who is very purposeful, who is very powerful, who is very decisive, who is very strong in his intention, who is committed to the progress of this country. This impression, has come across very strongly to all the listeners, whoever has heard him, majority of them, in fact, all of them feel that through the conversations of Mann Ki Baat, they could sense the personality of the Prime Minister. The second aspect, is a very interesting aspect. On one hand, they see a strong personality, a well-intentioned Prime Minister, a decisive Prime Minister. A Prime Minister means what he says and does what he means. That is one side. The other side is, there is a compassionate side of the Prime Minister. There is a very, very, I would say, a human heart on the many of the issues. And the way the Prime Minister has given suggestions, the way the Prime Minister has called upon citizens, brings out that the kind side of the Prime Minister.
Absolutely. And to add in this, Mr. Iyer, you talked about the sympathetic approach that the Prime Minister had. And we have observed this in the choices of the subjects that he chose per se, and also the call of action that he has from the people. So how the PM includes all these subjects in the program, and how these particular changes help to make it a huge hit among the masses?
You see, in terms of themes, I believe there are at least 100 themes that have been dealt by the Prime Minister in all these years. And these 100 themes have included some of the very flagship programs of the government, whether it is Swachh Bharat, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, water conservation, vocal for global, promoting local products. There is the promotion of Khadi, then Indian toys, promoting Indian toys, and then about startups in health ventures, then about Ayush, programs. There are several things he has talked about. But what has happened is, after the subjects came up in Mann Ki Baat, there has been a quantum jump in the way the people have responded to some of these programs. For instance, I am told the Khadi sales have picked up over ever since the Prime Minister took it up in his Mann Ki Baat. And I believe the Khadi Industries Commission have done very well. In fact, their sales have gone up. They have made record profit in promoting Khadi products. That is one. Second is the Indian toys. Prime Minister called upon the people in one of his radio addresses where he said, look, why not let us promote Indian toys instead of imported toys? Why not our children get exposed to the beauty of our toys? There are several toys made in this country which are safe, environmentally safe, and safe for children also. So that has also seen a quantum jump in terms of sales, and that has encouraged the local industry, the handicraft industry. And similarly, there are other subjects, whatever he has taken up. Of course, the famous one is when he called for Amrit Sarovar, when he talked of water conservation, he wanted people, young people to, various villages to, to ponder, to look at their own villages and see how they can conserve water by improving the water bodies, by developing the water bodies. So there have been so many success stories where young people have come together and they have cleaned up that water bodies in their villages or in their panchayat. And when the rains came, the villages were blessed by, readily available storage of water. So this has been one of the great, impacts of subjects being taken up in Mann Ki Baat. And if you look at, I just spoke about the kinder side of the Prime Minister. I remember, whenever he used to talk about, the approaching summer season as we are facing now, it's hot all over the country. And particularly in many parts of north and even east, it is so hot that even animals and birds, they look for water to quench their thirst. So it was Prime Minister's appeal to each citizen, to all of us. Why not keep a bowl of water in your veranda or in your balcony so that the birds, they can quench their thirst? Similarly for animals, why not leave some source of water on the road so that in such a way that, whether they are passing cattle or whether they are cats or dogs, for all of them. Now, to think of these animals and these birds, it brings out the kinder side of the Prime Minister. And definitely people have responded to this. People felt, yes, of course, many people already do these things, but more people joined in this effort to help one another, particularly in providing, safe drinking water, at least in these hot, scorching months. That's a very good example of how Mann Ki Baat has served to motivate people to think of solutions of very, very common problems.
So then, Mr. Iyer, can we say that with such a colossal impact, Mann Ki Baat can be rightfully termed as a social revolution?
Well, it is a social revolution of sorts because two things have happened. One is, the awareness of issues, awareness of problems. And the second part is, it has, inspired people. It has motivated people to take action. That's a very important side because in the survey by Prasar Bharati and Institute of Management, Rohtak, they have found out that among the people who have heard, because you mentioned a figure in your opening remarks that 23 crore people have listened to it regularly and there are about 41 crore people who occasionally, switch on the radio or listen to this address. Now of that, figures, if you see, at least 73% of our citizens, of our people, after listening to the Mann Ki Baat, they have felt very optimistic about their country, optimistic about their lives, and optimistic about the fact that India is definitely making progress in several fields and several sectors. This feeling, the mood of optimism, this feel-good factor has been generated after listening to the Prime Minister in Mann Ki Baat. This is very important. And the second thing is, what has also happened is, 63% also feel, their attitude towards the government. Because normally, we are filled with lot of pessimism and skepticism. Sarkar kya karegi, kuch nahi hoga. This mood has slowly abated. And in turn, trust has come. People feel, no, this problem will be solved. We'll definitely do something. Government is working at it and we must do our bit. This feeling has come. And of course, the most important result of Mann Ki Baat is 60% of, people who have listened to this program have felt greatly motivated and do something and also to work for the government in some of these flagship programs. And they have written to the Prime Minister's office. After all, this Mann Ki Baat has had a two-way process. So many people have been writing letters to the Prime Minister's office, to the Prime Minister, giving suggestions for subjects to be taken up, highlighting some problems, giving their solution, and also explaining to the Prime Minister whatever they are doing in their respective field. Many unknown people who have achieved great things in their own way have been highlighted by the Prime Minister. Normally the Prime Minister even talks to them and their conversation is recorded and played in the Mann Ki Baat, which in turn has inspired, many others. Many young people who listen to it feel, oh, this has happened in such a faraway place and achieved by people with so little resources. That means I can also do it. This motivation, I think, is one of the biggest achievements of Mann Ki Baat.
Mr. Iyer, here I also want to talk about how Mann Ki Baat was a very significant program during the pandemic, be it about spreading awareness, urging social distance, use of mask, or breaking myths regarding COVID vaccine, where Prime Minister Modi directly communicated to the people. So how has the Mann Ki Baat used to mobilize the masses towards a common goal?
Brought out a very, very important aspect of Mann Ki Baat. Yes, during the COVID period, the Prime Minister in every episode is to appeal to the people, common citizens, to follow the health protocol, to wear masks, to maintain personal hygiene, to wash their hands, and at the same time cooperate with health professionals, to follow the guidelines that used to be issued by the health ministry from time to time. So that was a very good way of conveying, in a mass contact way. Of course, Prime Minister addressed the nation on several occasions during the period of COVID. But this appeal through the radio, through Mann Ki Baat, that had its own impact. And people also knew what was happening, because when the vaccines were developed, it was the Prime Minister who explained how India has achieved such a very big thing. And when the vaccination started, and the Prime Minister was repeatedly appealing to people how they must join in a big way. And since the immunization program was launched in such a way, it was staggered. First it was the old age group. Then it was for people who are susceptible. Then it came to others. Then women, children, and finally entire population was covered. And in that, the Prime Minister kept appealing to people. And also because in some sections of our population there was vaccine hesitancy, and some people were also doing mischief, spreading nonsense about vaccine. All that were dispelled by the Prime Minister's address, where people were told to take the initiative and to make the best use of what the government has done, so that the vaccines were made available in all the primary health centers and all across the country, and people could go and take vaccination. And, India's mass vaccination is considered as the world's biggest immunization program. I mean, that is a very big achievement, and definitely Mann Ki Baat played a very important role, sort of a dialogue, because people used to also write to the Prime Minister about the difficulties they faced and how they were helping the people in their own way in finding oxygen, making masks, because there were episodes where he started making masks for distribution. So all these stories, motivated more and more people, and that was a very big period. It was a very crucial period for the entire country, and Mann Ki Baat was a sort of a connect between the Prime Minister and the thousands of people across our villages and cities.
Absolutely, Mr. Iyer. And time to time, Prime Minister Modi also talk about good governance. And in the context of Mann Ki Baat, when we see that the Mann Ki Baat program receives around tens of thousands of replies and feedbacks from citizens, so can we say that these ideas that are shared by citizens during the program also help the government to inform about policy decisions and improve the governance overall?
Mann Ki Baat has finally turned out to be a very big exercise and has created a solid base in Jan Bhagidari, public participation. And no program is successful unless people participate wholeheartedly. And Mann Ki Baat helped achieve this goal, because Swachh Bharat, you take any program, Swachh Bharat, providing clean drinking water, Jal Jeevan Mission, all these things require a lot of people's participation. And Prime Minister also talked about other flagship programs like Jan Dhan Yojana, the Mudra Yojana, Startup India, and Skill India. So many projects that were launched by this government in the last, 8-9 years. The popularity of these programs got further boost because the Prime Minister used to talk about these programs and for whom it is intended, for who should take the benefit, who should come forward and take the benefit of either Aadhaar and, all these things which the government has been, popularizing. All these issues were taken up by the Prime Minister. So that is why, I feel that Mann Ki Baat was a direct communication between the Prime Minister and citizens. And overall, people were inspired, people were motivated. It is not that just they listened to him from 11 to 11:30 a.m. on the last Sunday of every month. Rather, it was a thought process that was triggered by the Prime Minister talking to them, explaining to them. And you see the whole style of the Prime Minister, it was not a bhashan. See, it was a conversational style. Talking to people, talking individually, in a very, very conversational style. Prime Minister used to, face the facts, explain the issues, and put it in such a way even a very common person can understand.
Absolutely. You very rightly said that program Mann Ki Baat inspired people to transform their ideas into their works and contribute to nation building. Thank you so much, Mr. Iyer, for joining us today on All India Radio.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat at 100, an effective tool of Jan Andolan. The participants were Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and Om Vesh Upadhyay, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official.